the requesting the elimination of the planning board. Petition, we the undersigned registered voters of Dalton hereby request pursuant to RSA 673-18-2 that the following question be put to Dalton voters by official ballot at the upcoming annual town meeting. Are you in favor of abolishing the planning board as proposed by the petition of the voters of this town? So that has become a warrant article, so that'll be on ballot at town meeting. And so then the next piece after that happens is that we need to hold this public hearing for you all to be able to come in and ask questions, make comments, and go through whether you all feel you want to vote one way or the other. So we have a number of folks online, a number of folks in person. I'm going to speak for a bit to send the ground level, the ground rules, to talk a little bit, and then we'll start taking questions and comments from here, and we'll mix in comments from folks online. So most of the usual kind of rules, if you're going to come up, state your name and address. This is for residents. We're aiming for 2 minutes in person. Not planning to time everybody, but let's just be courteous. Stay on topic. This is about whether the planning board should be in Dalton or not. It's not about any other part of the town. It's not any part of the state or federal government. So no personal attacks. And as I said, I'll talk a little bit first and then we'll get into the question. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Carl Lindquist. I'm the chair of the planning board. I've been on the planning board just about 10 years now. None of us get paid. This is a volunteer thing. 10 years goes back pretty far. It's a lot of hours, and my family certainly would rather that I didn't spend as many hours away. I don't get paid anything. I don't get any great joy out of this. It's a civic responsibility piece. I think the same could be said for everybody else on the board. If you could put up the Word document.
Yes.
So for anybody that didn't get one, there's a couple more copies up here. These are just a few bullet points about the history of the planning board in town and some things that will happen if the planning board is abolished. There's no opinion in here. These are the facts as we understand it from New Hampshire Municipal or other groups. So I won't read through everything here, but I'm just going to hit a few of the high points. So 1967, planning board was established. 1971, the
Did somebody hijack?
sorry about that.
Hey guys. We're all adults.
Yeah, this is the part about being courteous and civil. All right, so 1971, planning board had been in place for 4 years. Town voted to authorize and empower the planning board to approve and disapprove subdivisions. 1975, participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. Master plan in 1987. So, all these things have been in place for quite a while. The main thing, if we talk about what happens when the planning board goes away, so there's no ability to regulate any development. So that's the main piece. It certainly is significant that somebody's got 100 acres of land and they choose to subdivide that into quarter-acre lots. They can do that, right? That's the piece. So It's nice in principle. If that's that beautiful field across the street from you that you don't own, but you enjoy, that's a piece that can happen, and nobody has any say over that.
Can you speak up?
Yeah, sorry. So the main thing is today with subdivision regulations, we have a minimum lot size. And so there is a say over, somebody wants to split up a larger parcel, how many parcels they can create. So if the planning board goes away, you've got a 100-acre parcel, or your neighbor does across the street, and they want to split it up into quarter-acre lots, that's 400 lots. So these are things that can change, will change when there's no other regulation in town. The master plan is the piece that we're working on now. This is it's a document that's a guidance for the town. That's not a piece that says exactly what we can or can't do, but it's a helpful thing for the town to use. And so that also would no longer be maintained. The floodplain insurance that I talked about. So we have a number of lots along the river that are in the floodplain, FEMA floodplain, because we have a planning board and because we have subdivision regulations, there's access to federal flood insurance. So if you're one of those folks that lives in one of those lots, whether you have it or have access to it, that's great. That goes away when the planning board goes away. Those two are tied together in the federal system. Okay, so those are a few pieces that we know. So as I said, we'll start taking questions. We'll start in the audience, probably do here first, and then we'll do online. Gal will be monitoring that as we get comments that come through. So again, I ask 2 minutes, state who you are, be civil, and let's go ahead and get started. So anybody? Yep. So have you?
Yeah, my name is Greg Gradwell, and my wife Susan is right here, and we have lived in Dalton for, I think, almost 7 years in May.
Yeah, could I have you come up in the room? I know it's not much, but this will get out to the folks that are listening too. Thank you.
I think over here.
Okay, with Mr. Dennis, I know. So in other words, so I'm in the middle of this. I'm more curious than anything about what's happening with it. From what I have read, and I try to keep up with this stuff over the time. And basically, years and years ago, I was on the Whitefield Planning Board, and I left the Whitefield Planning Board because, as Mr. Lindquist here said, it takes a lot of work and a lot of research. And at the time, I wasn't willing to do it. So I left the board, and years ago, I was also on the school board. At that point, I was different because I'm a former teacher. I knew what was happening on education, so the research was limited. But again, going back to, I'm just more curious on what's happening. From what I've read, it'd be foolish to vote against the planning board. I mean, just from what Mr. Lindquist said. And it goes back to the same thing. I understand the conservation one. My goal, and I know a little bit about government, my goal, suggestion would be, all right, if you don't want it, keep the planning board and then make the representation elective. So in other words, go through the process. I'd like to keep the planning board, keep the conservation and go through the process. Get your people who are interested in that particular issue and let them, and let them decide what was going on. If you don't like them, then don't elect them. All right? Rather than appoint them, have an election. So my vote, and I'm not sure about my wife, but my vote is going to be to keep the conservation and the planning board. One question while I am here, I'm not sure if anybody knows it. Has anybody been up Mirror Lake Road lately? On up Mirror Lake Road, if you go down there, there's a clear cut. About 100, how many acres? 100 acres, 150 acres of clear cut. You know what's going there? Did they subdivide that? Do you have any, you know what I'm talking about?
They have not subdivided it yet.
What's gonna go there? Do you know?
I don't know. I
No.
know they were-
But I said, take a look. I said, go up for Mirror Lake Road, maybe just 200 or 300 yards. We take our Beagle walking up there all the time. And on the left-hand side, it's you could put 2 golf courses. So if you're down that way sometime, just drive up Mirror Lake Road and check it out and you see what's happening. You know, according to the planning board, they don't know what's happening. Who did the clear cut? Who owns it?
I'm not remembering the name. I think he is a developer, as I recall, but I'm not remembering the name.
But why I brought it up is this is a perfect example of why the town needs a planning board to control, not to control, that's a bad word, to assist in the development and to find out what's happening, because that affects us. That affects us. My last point I'd like to bring up, to me, looking from the outside in, again, having no axe to grind, to me, it's a property value issue. The people at Forest Lake don't want because of Cassell. That's the bottom line, this whole thing. It goes back to the Cassell issue and the dump. And the people of Forest Lake, they don't want Casella because it's going to lower the property value. The other group who want to eliminate the planning board, what do they want? They want to keep it rural so that they can keep their whatever, and so their property values don't go down. That's the bottom line. But again, I would recommend highly that you vote when the time comes up in March, that we all vote to keep the planning board and keep the conservation board and go through the process of electing people, not appointing them. Thank you.
Next, yep. I don't think you have to hold it, but it was.
Okay, so, but I don't speak that way.
You probably can kind of
Okay, sounds good.
right about that.
Good. My name is Sandy Danis. I live at 117 McGinty Road. I'm 100% independent and speak solely for myself. First of all, Carl, I want to say, and the whole board, I want to say thank you for your service. I do want to say you're wrong that regarding quarter-acre lots in fields. It falls to state regulations. We do not put quarter-acre lots in fields. So I think you should either do the homework or figure out what happens if there's no planning board. There are many communities, including Clarksville and Pittsburgh, in co-ops that don't have planning boards.
I'll
And
just clarify, there are 2 in the state of New Hampshire that don't, you just named the 2 that don't have planning boards, just
You're
for
absolutely
clarity.
right. But anyway, let's keep going because I know we're timing.
Speak up, please.
Okay. In my opinion, the new appointees to our boards are wrong for our town. I've had an opportunity to sit on boards in the past, and the most important job of boards was to make sure our new members were a good fit for all of our constituents. And sadly, I haven't seen any due diligence done by our boards to figure out who they're appointing. This really surprises me. So I've done a little bit of diligence on my own. I'd like you to see some of what appears on social media publicly. And here, you can look at those and pass them around amongst yourself. This is what our entire world sees with our proposed members, and this is why we are here, why, I see you looking for a
Yep.
call. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Once you look at this, I will tell you, as a woman, and we are the majority here in Dalton, we are more women than men in this community. I want to say what I have seen greatly troubles me and frankly makes me feel extremely uncomfortable. I wouldn't feel welcome or safe, frankly, appearing before or as a member of any of our boards And others in Dalton have told me this. They do not want to come before these boards because we have people, and I wouldn't say, I don't feel safe right now, seeing someone here filming me and knowing that it might appear who knows where. I don't feel safe about that. I do not feel safe, and this happens at every single meeting. While I appreciate Terry's historical overview of these boards, this has nothing to do with recent appointments. History is history. Do a great job with the history of the town. But today is today. These boards are accountable to Dalton for what they have done. You have poured gasoline on the fires of division in this community. Dalton deserves better, and it's time for a fresh start. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sandy. What? One point I'll make before we take the next person. This board, in terms of makeup, has been static until just recently. We appointed one member. I think that's who Sandy is referring to. But I want to make that clear that the rest of the board has been here for quite a while. Jim, sure, you can go next. And I will also mention while Jim's coming up that the board, the person that was appointed after this petition was put in place and the warrant article went up.
Where do you want me to speak?
You kind of where Sandy was, I think, sort of speaking towards this and towards the folks. Yeah, something like that.
So my name is Jim Dennis. Sorry, my name is Jim Dennis. I'm the worst half of Sandy. I live at 117 Lincoln Road in Dalton. Quickly, a rebuttal. Quarter acre lots would be subject to state subdivision approval. Quarter acre lots would be subject to state subdivision approval. So you can't put markings and quarter acre lots. You need to have state subdivision approval for anything 5 acres or less. Fact. Second, I think Mr. Lindquist said that if you abolish the planning board, you can't have a flood insurance. The memo Mr. Lindquist handed out says there's a 2-year waiting period for that to take effect. Is that true?
Yeah,
Okay, so
after the planning board goes away.
Not quite the problem that was presented. There's a 2-year waiting period. If the planning board is abolished, the plan is to have it reestablished in 1 year. We're not trying to blow up the town to get rid of the boards. We're trying to have a fresh start with a new board that represents the town. Please listen to these words. Stupid. Dupes. Minions. Skills. Ignorant. Low status. Disdain. Disdain. This is what one or the other, or both, of your new board members have said about Dalton voters. Think of those words. That's what they have said about Dalton voters. On their public social media, open to the world, read it worldwide. That's what they say about us. These are divisive and hateful words. Hateful words. They show disrespect and contempt for the townspeople. That is just plain wrong. Why do they hurl these insults? Because some of us are willing to stand up and say, we don't agree with the Forest Lake agenda. We don't agree with a vendetta against a single landowner, with a vendetta against a single project. We don't have to say we want Casella or don't want Casella. We stand for principle. We don't want to see boards captured by a single interest and not working for the whole town. Dear boards, you are responsible. You are accountable. You are the ones who invited these new members onto your boards. You are the ones who invited the people who said those things about all of us in this room. You invited them. You are accountable. That's why we're here today. We don't believe you've done your jobs. We don't believe you've done your diligence. We don't believe you understand what you have done to divide this town by your actions. Town needs a fresh start. We need new boards. We need boards that represent all of the people, not just a single special interest. And let's not get confused. That's why we're here tonight. We need new boards. There's no way to recall or to unelect or to fire the people who have been put on these boards, people who have divided our town. We can't take it back. They sit there for 3 years. You can't get rid of them. We can have a brand new select board, elected by the people, but you can't get rid of people who stand those words by all. Only way to do it is to abolish these boards, set up new boards. That is what we want to do. That is why we're here. And that is why I ask all of you to support.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Yeah, go ahead.
People standing right around
Here.
Yeah, just about, so just so people can hear you. I think as long as you speak up, we should be good.
Okay. My name is Tracy Wagner. I am a resident of Dalton and I do live on Forest Lake. My concern is not about my property value. My concern is about the quality of our environment, of our water, of our air. I am a physician. And I am concerned about health. We don't have clean water. We really don't have any future at all. And if we have no regulations, if we get rid of the planning board and we get rid of the conservation commission and we don't have zoning, we have no recourse, no way to protect ourselves from anyone doing anything they wish to do. So I don't know what people are hoping to gain by doing this. I know in the Globe article, there may be people that are getting some monetary gain or, whatever, but that is going to be very short-lived because the damage that's going to be done if we don't have any regulations will be forever. There's no way to take that back. Your town is destroyed. So that's number one. Number two, there is a petition that's going around to make this the planning board elected as opposed to appointed. And so if you have any interest in that, that is a petition that is going around that you can sign. And then we can vote on that at the town meeting to elect as opposed to appoint planning board. Apparently the Conservation Commission cannot be elected. It's a state statute, and it is going to be appointed. But at least the planning board, on the ballot, we can vote to change it to an elected position.
Good. Thank you, Tracy. Eric?
Eric P. Lott, 40 Simons Road. I have two questions. You say that we'll abolish these laws. Who now takes the laws in the same dwelling, two houses on the same piece of property? The question is, you can't have two pieces of house on the same property, it has to be subdivided.
It's called an accessory additional dwelling unit.
Okay, and the second thing is, who here has been forced to hold up to the Act 250 shoreline protection? Do you guys stop any of that?
That's DES.
You have, so how come all
No,
these new
that's-
houses going on Forest Lake?
DES regulates the shoreline.
So you can't stop
It's not our purview.
not our purview.
DES covers it.
them? We can build another house on our property, no problem.
As long as it abides by the additional dwelling.
Well, wait a minute, they have a thing saying that you have to have so much road frontage. We had to go through this. You got your road frontage you need? Okay, you got 1 acre, 2 acres of property.
Over 2 acres.
How many acres within this thing said you had to build on?
The subdivision regulations today?
Yeah, 2 acres is what you said. Yeah.
There's a lot of grandfathered property in town.
New house
Parcels
is not grandfathered.
parcels are.
We need zoning to regulate the houses.
Yeah, yeah.
Pam Catherine, 41 Harriman Road, Dalton.
Pam, can you just step
Yeah,
a
step
couple
closer
sessions?
to the
Yeah,
mic.
thank you.
Okay, thanks. In this room, I see a lot of people who are, as Tracy Wagner, Forest Lake residents. And you have to understand that we come from a different side of the track, but we still count. We would probably not even have this abolished planning board had it not been for a particular person now sitting on the board. We saw it coming, whether that was put out before or after, we saw it coming. That's why this went out. I ask you guys to realize this is not a permanent abolishment. We just need a new start, a fairer board, not related to just zoning and everything else. A lot of us don't like zoning. You saw that in the election. So please, let's take it back a step and just think about other people than ourselves. Everybody should be getting along, going to the same point. I just don't think that an abolishment of the planning board would be such a bad thing. A fresh start. Maybe we see some new people want to get involved. Conservation Commission, on the other hand, well, that's a problem itself. That's all I say. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll just reiterate for those that aren't aware, zoning was proposed and it was rejected, right? So we don't have zoning. We didn't have it before. We had it for a little while. We don't have it anymore. That's it. Okay, who's next? Doyle?
Moderator, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Doyle Davis. I live at 73 Lower Augustine Road here in Dalton, New Hampshire. About 50 years ago to this very day, I finished my journey from Fort Worth, Texas, where I was born and raised, and began my life here in this beautiful part of the United States. I respect Mr. Dennis's viewpoints and some of the views that have been expressed. Mr. Pilot and others who I know have loved this place as much as I do. I think that the article in the warrant to abolish the board is somewhat misplaced. Why? Because if we abolish that board, perhaps the next group of citizens like us could, if they don't like that board, they could also be abolished. What I feel is a more democratic approach would be to place an article on our warrant coming up in March that would let us, the voters, town landowners here in this town, to elect our planning board members. If at the end of their terms, which hopefully they will be staggered, if there's a particular member that we felt was not doing their job, we would have the right to cast a vote to elect a new member. The meeting that we had this summer on the zoning issue, I was for zoning, but I have friends in this room who were my friends before that vote. They were against zoning. In a democratic process, the town voted not to have zoning, and those friends of mine are still my friends today. We just personally agreed to disagree. So I am part of a group that's trying to get voters in the town of Dalton to sign a petition, put an article on the warrant coming up in March meeting, in which we as citizens would vote to elect members of this body. I think the sentiment to abolish this board is misplaced. Thank you.
Thank you, Dora. Do we have any online comment? Okay, so I was asked to read one from somebody who was not able to be here. This is in the paper. This is B. Thayer, Star King Lid Road. Dear editor, I was appalled when I learned about the contention within our Dalton community regarding the existence of our planning board and our conservation commission. Having been a taxpayer in Dalton for over 50 years, I've never known of such civic discourse. We are all residents of Dalton for a reason. We all chose a quiet, small town bordered by a beautiful freshwater river, pristine woodlands, including ponds and lakes. Many thanks to those before us who worked respectfully with our elected officials to provide and protect this environment for all of us. It took many volunteer hours working together as friends. Now is the time to continue similar efforts to use our well-established volunteer planning board and conservation commission to move our town forward with gratitude for their caring for all of us. These committees preserve the value of our land and homes with open discussions for all. This is the democratic way. There could be nominations for members of the planning board from all residents to serve on the planning board to aid in representation. We all have an equal vote regardless of amount of land owned or financial ability. The creation of planning boards and their master plans are helpful to potential residents and provide a guide for beneficial growth of the town. The plans or suggestions are brought to residents for a vote and can be modified or changed after respectful discussion and vote by all. Last sentence is about, paragraph is about the Conservation Commission, so I won't read that, but I do hope Dalton residents can be respectful of those who volunteer in calm civic manner to protect our community. Anybody else in the room that? Yeah. Over this way, again.
Right there is good. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. My name is Kenyon Tuttle. I live at 185 Landry Road here in Dalton. And I'd like to engage Mr. Lundquist in a little colloquy if it's possible. Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay. Your planning board meetings, are they scheduled on a regular basis?
Yes,
And they're publicly announced?
yes,
You can get them in the paper and on the website. Do you,
Yep.
do you publish the agenda?
first Wednesday of every month we meet and it's in person. We also still have the Zoom meeting
Right, so I could come to a planning board meeting if I chose.
anytime.
Okay. And if I had a disagreement with an issue, on the agenda, would I be allowed to speak and address that issue?
Sure.
Okay. Does the planning board have a budget line? Is there a budget line for the planning board?
I think it's $500.
Okay, it's not a
We-
huge amount.
we-
You don't get paid.
No.
None of the members get paid, right? You're all volunteers.
Yes.
I'm alive tonight because of volunteers and I appreciate volunteers. I went skiing today, downhill skiing. I'm blind, and I did that because of volunteers. So, I really appreciate that you take the time and give the time. And I don't often agree with everything you do. I voted, but I appreciate what you do and the time that you give. And I think it would be, someone else said it already, the notion of just doing away with the planning board is misguided. It would be unfortunate. We have a means of discussing things. We can debate, we can meet, without being unruly, you know what I mean? It's just, we don't have to be, we can be civil in our discourse, and that's what I'm hoping for. And I would hate to see a knee-jerk reaction that resulted in the end of the planning board. There's been some discussion about changes. I'd be open to listening to those, but to just outright do away with the planning board, I think would be a mistake. Thank you for your time.
Okay, appreciate that. Thanks again. Anybody else? Sure. Go ahead.
I'm Marty Faulkner and I live at 558 Dalton Road. And I wasn't going to speak tonight because I too often get too much to say, I guess. But there are a couple things that I wanted to point out that I feel are important. Having sold real estate for 25 years, I've got kind of a knowledge about how some of these things go. And one thing that somebody said, I think it was Jim Dana, said that the state has a requirement of a minimum of 5 acres. That's not, certainly not so. That what? Oh, septic requirement is not 5 acres. Anyway, no, I'm sorry, it's not. It's not. I mean, our neighbor on Camille Road has made several lots there. Probably 2 or 3 are 1 acre. And it's 3 acre lots. I mean, as long as a septic system can be put in, it can be, anyway, that's not my main thing. I think one of the things that you need to think about as far as not having a planning board is flood insurance. You know, you might say nothing about that. Maybe you live in a nice little house that's got a brook behind your house and you've never had a problem. Maybe you have or have not had flood insurance. But if we don't have it available and you want to sell that nice little house with a brook behind, guess what? Anybody that's got to take a mortgage cannot buy that house because they cannot obtain flood insurance. That's real important. Whether or not you need it, it's important for if you ever want to do something different with your property. So those are the only 2 points I wanted to make.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Anybody else?
My name is Karen Crow. I live on Faraway Road. I'm just a little disturbed at some of the people who have spoken here tonight in favor of abolishing the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board. The reason is I didn't hear any specifics offered. And I believe that it's more driven by dislike of certain members, personality clashes, and fear, frankly. And I don't think that's a good enough reason to destroy what we have. It's a safety net for all of us. You say you don't want Dalton to change. I don't want it to change either. But I don't want a landfill. You keep bringing up the residents of Forest Lake. What about the residents of Forest Lake? They aren't the only ones concerned about this. They aren't. I live 2 miles from the site of that proposed landfill. So I won't be immediately affected like the people a 1/4 mile from it, which will also affect our attractiveness for tourism, which is money into the community without changing our environment. That's all I want to say.
Thanks, Karen.
Hello. I'm Mary Boone Wellington. I live on Ridge Road. Just take 2 steps in. Thank you. Mary Boone Wellington. I live on Ridge Road. I'm a relative newcomer. I lived in Whitefield for 8 years, and 6 years ago I moved 1.5 miles over into the town of Dalton. So basically, it's like coming into the middle of a very long-running soap opera. What I'm hearing here, I don't know who the players are. You're all good actors. Everybody's got a point of view. They all want something dramatically, you know, desperately. But just, I'm like everybody I've met here, okay? And it's a diverse community, all right? We're not homogenous. That's cool. I like it. I also would like to thank the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission, wherever they are, for their service, because it's hard to spend your time for free doing your civic duty and then get beat on. So just a note to people who are beating on the people who are volunteering. You don't have to agree with them. And I do like what, I don't remember who said it, but it's really a great point that you can come to the meeting and have a discussion. How amazing is that? I mean, that's just amazing. We could talk things out. We don't have to like go to this, you know, wipe it out nuclear option. That seems crazy. Just, you know, outsider point of view. I'm an insider, but I've still got the perspective of an outsider. Work with what we've got. You know, I like it. Thanks.
Thanks, Mary. Sure.
Hi, I'm Chris Ennis, 541 Simons Road, and we just recently had a lot line adjustment. Is that what it's called? And I tell you, it was nice to have a planning board to take. I mean, I didn't really know what was supposed to be done, but it was brought to planning board. Planning board has made sure that everything's done appropriate. And I mean, I suppose the select board would do it if we didn't have a planning board. I don't know. But I appreciate how efficiently you guys did it and made sure that everything was done correctly. Thank you so much.
Subdivision review would go away.
Subdivision review.
Anybody else in the room?
My name is Jeanette Sharon. I'm at 859 Dalton Road. I'm new here. We moved here in July 4th weekend, and we love it here. I stayed at Marty's Airbnb. That's how I found my house. And I knew that there was no turning back. I came here once, and my next 6 trips were up to New Hampshire to figure out where we were going to live. And honestly, it was a 5-year plan. It was 5 years. My husband was going to retire. I was going to retire early, unbeknownst to him. But 10 months later, I had this call me and said, I can't stay in Chicago anymore. 28 years in general contracting, and the politics of Chicago had just bled me dry. I came here, luckily found a job very quickly. I had my master's in business administration, so it wasn't hard to find where I belong. Working for the select board. Never worked in municipal business before in my life, but found it very interesting. Certain things transitioned, and I became a tax collector and then became a town clerk too. Nothing scared me away. Like I said, 28 years in Chicago, I'm pretty well moved, let's just say. And still today, I get up every day and say, I love it here. I love it here. I'm happy to be here. I love my job, and I love serving everyone. That being said, the divide and the discourse and the ugliness that some people in Dalton have with each other is utterly disgusting. I didn't even experience this in Chicago over 28 years. It's disgusting. And I'll tell you, if we don't pull it together and learn how to communicate and talk with one another and learn how to compromise and realize that we're not always going to be the happy ones, that we have to follow rules that maybe we don't agree with. And sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles, or as you know, Pam said, shit happens. We just have to work together, because if we don't, Dalton will never be the best that it can be, regardless of whether it's old with no zoning, new with zoning, with a Casella, without a Casella, with Forest Lake, without Forest Lake. And I don't blame people that live in Forest Lake. I don't want to look out my window and see a dump. I don't. I wouldn't want to see a dump on the other side of the Connecticut River in Vermont either. You better believe I would be fighting over it. But I find it really ironic that people in this room who are really, really, really for conservation and for freedom are fighting the people that give us some of that and protect everyone, not just the people that want the landfill or don't want the landfill. They want to live on the lake or live on the river, or not live on the river or live on the lake, right? These guys are working for everybody, regardless of what everyone thinks. I've never seen a harder working group ever, especially a volunteer group. So I think everyone needs to kind of take a step back and realize that change is what we make it. And that if we don't like what it is today, then the actions we take today make a difference tomorrow. It doesn't mean we do away with it. Otherwise, Biden wouldn't be in office, maybe Trump wouldn't either, right? We work today for what we want tomorrow. It's not, oh, I don't like it, do away with it, and we'll deal with it later. No, it doesn't work that way. These guys volunteer. If you don't like it, then come to the meetings and put your hand in the air and say that you're interested and get on the damn board so that you can make a difference yourself. Instead of saying, I don't have time, I'm not interested, I don't have time. If you don't have time to be involved, then don't have time to complain about what you're getting. That's it.
Pam, we're gonna go one by one. Do you have anybody else on here that? Is there anybody has a comment?
I mean, Dalton residents.
Anybody else that hasn't gone yet that wants to say something or ask a question? Sure.
My name is Mike Carrier. I live at 589
859.
859 Dalton Road.
I just know what house it is.
Yeah, that's very good. I am on the Conservation Commission. I'm an Eagle Scout. I believe in what is good for all of us. I was asked to go, and because of my upbringing and what I do for scouts and people around, what happens is I was brought up to make a difference, to try to make things better for everybody, not just for certain people. I am on the commission because I want to make it and help make our town a better place for everybody, not just for you. And by doing that, I'm putting in my input to make it for everybody. I am from New Hampshire. Originally, I'm from Nashville, but I used to climb mountains all through this area. I was also a professional scouter. I used to be assistant ranger at the Hidden Valley Forest Service. So it was things I love putting it back. That's my way of helping. And for all of us, we have to get back together. We live here. It's to make it a happy, loving, and excellent place for anybody that wants to come in and smile and see what this great place we have. I thank you very much for listening to me. The boards are here to hurt us. But I know some people think they do, but like a lot of these people say, you need to put your input to help these people, all of us, make things so everybody can be the same and happy. I thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody else that hasn't gone yet? I've got one other person here, Doyle, and then that's, yep, come on up.
Oh, I'm Carol Sheldrake. I'm here on a personal note, not a select person. I live at 66 Faraway Road. And I guess what I listened to tonight, that there's a personal conflict between one member and other people. But to punish the entire board, let me understand this. Is this one person that they're having the conflict? Does he make all the decisions? Is it a board that votes on different things?
Yes,
Am I to assume that with the conservation as well?
I would think so.
So to do away with the planning board would do away with years and years of experience, knowledge, work that's already been done over a outside, call it what you want, kissing contest between whatever you want. So my thought is that you guys have volunteered for years. It's an insult to do away with you. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah, John.
Hi, good evening. My name's John Swan. I'm certainly a member of the community who's been involved in this pissing contest. It's not about personalities. This whole effort, I'm just here to clear the record for you, set it straight. This is about a group of people that want the Casella landfill money. And why all of a sudden, why would they get rid of the planning board? A volunteer group that's been here, these people have been here for years. Why? Because of the failed lot line adjustment that Casella needs to close on the Ingerson land. To get rid of them, they don't have to go through that. Believe me, I've seen the internal emails from Casella. Am I, do I have the floor?
No, that's,
This is exactly what we're talking about. I'm fighting for people that don't want this landfill. I'm being sued by Casella, and as I'm trying to speak, how many people just tried to shut me up? Okay?
You do that, all the people, all the time. So don't
Folks.
claim, you should
Vic.
do all kinds of things. That's why we.
Vic,
I videotape recordings for when people say
John.
things,
let's keep it focused to
I
the
know,
planning board
but I'm
piece.
trying to clarify.
Yeah.
When I record at public meetings, because when people say things, it can be used against them. And right now, this is a fight between two groups of citizens in the town of Dalton, pro landfill, anti landfill. Bottom line, why is this person here filming? That's a person from Casella or on behalf of Casella. They tape all the meetings. By the way, every planning board meeting I've been to for the past 4 years, I don't think any of you people have ever attended, except maybe one or two occasionally. No one goes to the planning board meetings. No one goes to the conservation commissions. Did you try to dissolve the conservation commission when Doug Ingerson and Vic St. Cyr, who's an admitted paid Casella
John,
consultant,
John,
they were on the conservation commission?
John.
Did they interrupt? Did anyone interrupt you, Dennis, when you spoke?
John, we're gonna keep it to planning.
It's all related, because I'm clearing the record. This is about the Casella landfill project. This is about the Casella landfill project. The Conservation Commission weighs in on the wetlands permit applications. Guess what? With no Conservation Commission, there's no weighing in on the wetlands permit application.
John.
Why is Pam Catherine trying to shut me up?
John, listen, we gotta focus the planning board to be abolished or not. That's the conversation.
But everybody else got to say what they wanted, and it's not part of the accurate record, which is to pave the way for Casella. So they get rid of the planning board. There's no need to get lot line adjustment approval from them. They denied it in April of 2019. Conservation Commission, you do away with them. No wetlands permit application input from the town at all. The select board can't do that. So anyway, let's be clear. This is about the Casella landfill project and the money that some people want. And that's why you just witnessed it. How many people tried to shut me up? So thank you. And visit SaveForestLake.com for all the documentation you want. So I back everything up I said.
Thanks, John. Anybody else that hasn't gone yet? Okay. Pam, I'll give you a try. We're not gonna go all the way around the room again, but if we got a couple people who want to say something.
Airman Road. Genetic Road. This sucks. People should be volunteering more, putting their input. This is probably why we have a division. However, as your head of your conservation commission, you know where he's at.
Pam,
That's not true.
keep it
Okay,
focused,
okay, I'm
please.
sorry. I expect to see all of you guys at the next planning board meeting. If you truly believe what you said, and you're downing other people for not going or being on, then you're hypocritical. And to assume that people don't get on because they don't volunteer. Lady, I volunteer a lot. Sure, my time is thin, but that's what I like. So enough said. Have a good night.
Thanks, Ben. Go on.
Just one quick question. I don't think this meeting tonight is about Casella or zoning, it's about how our select board is service. And I have a petition, if you would like to sign it tonight on your way out, as to placing an article on the warrant to elect our board members as opposed to put up back to take the signature.
Talking about planning.
Good.
I'm Gordon Job. I live on Ridge Road, Dalton. We're relative newcomers, been here since what, 2007. I grew up in dirt poor floors in West Virginia, coal fields in West Virginia. So this was kind of like coming home. I mean, the mountains, the forest. This is not that we have dirt floors anymore, but we have. This is the area we love. My wife grew up in the cities, and so I thought, oh no, if she moves up here, she's going to be very unhappy. You couldn't move her out of this place, but she doesn't force it down. She loves it up here more than I do. And her favorite time is the winter. 16 inches of snow on the ground right now. I don't know. Years ago, the citizens of Dalton abolished the police force, and I don't know the details because of this person or that person. The zoning board was abolished because you didn't like the town telling you what color you paint your house, which is totally false. And now we're after the planning board. What's the purpose of the planning board? To protect property values, health, and safety. That's it. Now, I don't know the details about who said this and somebody don't like him, or he says, I don't know. But that's not important. That's not the purpose of the planning board. That's not the issue here. The issue is protecting property values, health, and safety of our town. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon.
Comments from the chat.
Okay, so we've got a couple from the chat that I will read. Ron Renaud, 282 Harriman Road. Though I prefer to speak, I understand the limitations of our technology, so I'll try to be as clear and brief as possible. First, I'd like to thank the board for giving their time. Second, thank you to my neighbors for speaking their minds. Third, I prefer small and where possible, no government. Fourth, I do not think we should be acting with any urgency to abolish any part of our government, particularly in these contentious times. What we need now is thoughtful, careful planning for what we, as a whole, want for our town. I encourage my friends and neighbors that we do not take any dramatic steps with regards to our little government and the little influence it has on what happens here. I do not think we ought to dissolve the planning board. Thank you. Okay, then Adam Finkel, 365 Forest Lake Road. My dream for the past 35 years has been to move to the North Country. I wish I'd been born there, but I wasn't. I can't be here tonight because I can only live for 7 to 8 months in my unheated, uninsulated cabin. I plan on building a winterized place, but when I learned of the landfill project, I felt I had to wait. I just want to make one point. There are extremists, there are misogynists, there are mean people all over the world, but there are also people who spread false rumors and lies about other people. Anyone can be accused of anything truthfully or falsely. I'm not an extremist. I volunteered for the planning board and joined just a few weeks ago, but I can't defend myself against baseless charges. I regret that my views on the landfill have upset people, but what I believe and will always explain myself as carefully as I can. This is not a you-know-what contest. The contest has two sides. I'm not insulting anyone. I've observed 3 planning board meetings and participated fully in the one last night. If anyone has any problems with what I've said in those 4 meetings, I'd love to hear it. Okay, so that's what we've got. So 8:01, so good job keeping it to just exactly an hour. I hope this was educational for everybody. People got a chance to say what they wanted to say. People heard some different viewpoints. And we'll go forward.
Question.
Sure.
Is it possible to hear from people on the planning board why you think it's important to not be abolished? Is that something that we can ask to hear? I mean, this is a hearing, right? So
Yeah, that's certainly a fair question.
if anyone wants to share.
Anybody have something they want to say or want me to
Go ahead.
speak? I mean, I think it was well said by a lot of people tonight that, you know, we are all volunteering our time. There's no fame and glory here. This is a piece that we believe needs to be done by the town. Some of us volunteered, some of us were asked because it's a role in the town. You all have seen, it's always a challenge to find people to fill slots, elected or otherwise, in town. That's every year. I really appreciate the folks on this board. I don't have the right answers all the time and often get corrected or educated on the board, and I appreciate that. I really appreciate working with these folks. We do the best we can. We're not always right by any means. Getting the feedback from the town is, for something like zoning, is a piece that we worked on. We put it out, it got voted down, period. Right, so we're not angry, we're not upset, we're not scheming. It was a role that we had to play. The town made a vote, we move on. So we're working on the master plan. That's another piece that is part of our responsibility to do. Lot line adjustments, we do all those things as they come up to help facilitate people doing what they need to do in town.
Do you have any updates on the master plan?
Sure.
Published on the web or?
It is, the draft that I have in my hand is on the web. We talked about it last night quite extensively in our meeting. We'll have a working session coming up on the 15th to go over some of the edits, and then we'll be voting on it. We'll have a hearing like this on March 1st at our meeting. But yeah, this is on the town website.
I'll speak. I don't say much. And you guys have seen me typing away. My name is Gal Petashnik. I live with my partner on 71 Union Road. You're gonna hear me get a little emotional because I get nervous. So just putting that vulnerability. I came to Dalton from Littleton and found that I had a hard time knowing what was going on in town. And so at an election, I asked where there was need, and the planning board was where there was need. So I came and sat on the planning board, not because I felt like I had anything to add, but because there was a need in town. One of the things that I hold really dear, something that I live in my life outside of my planning board world, is to make sure that everyone that I come into contact with has an opportunity to speak their truth and be heard. And I think that that is one of the things that I find extremely important about the work that the planning board does every single time we sit down. I've done everything that I can to make sure that the people in Dalton feel like they have a voice. And I've brought things to the board to make sure that even when it's uncomfortable, we have those discussions. I really hope that the people of Dalton see that and hear that and recognize that there are people working really hard for you guys to have a voice. And if you lose your planning board You are going to lose the opportunity to be heard. Everyone, regardless of whether or not we agree, has the opportunity to speak. And without the planning board, you are going to lose that opportunity. Please just keep that in mind when you are voting. Thank you.
Let's go. Anybody else?
I'd like to say a few words. My name is Eric Nilsson. I live on 399 Harriman Road. I purchased my property that I live on in 1974. So I'm just shy of 50 years. I set about building my home, and I'm still working on it. I did support the zoning ordinance. And this is the reason why. Some time ago, a gun range started, local, mostly local, I think, residents. And it affected my quality of life. That was not that group was not so onerous, but there were times when you could hear the firing after dark occasionally. It's within the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, the gun range changed hands, and it's become a much more professional business. So obviously it brings taxes to the town, which is a good thing. I personally do not have any opposition to the use of firearms. But this organization, there's, because there's no regulations in terms of noise ordinance, which was actually, there was an attempt to pass a noise ordinance probably 10 to 15 years ago, which was soundly defeated. So when they, the amount of noise that I am subjected to when the gun range is in operation depends upon the caliber of the weapons that are being used. But when they are using high-powered sniper rifles, automatic weapons, I cannot go outside on a weekend or have guests or family because it's obnoxious. It's bothersome. And if there had been zoning, something like this, to have that kind of an operation in the middle of a residential neighborhood does not make a lot of sense. It affects my property values that I've worked my entire life to try to create a decent home. So that's my point of view as far as that's concerned. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Jared.
No, that's so much.
Okay, so it's 8:10. Thanks again for everybody coming. We got 50 or so people here and have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
One suggestion, if you guys are gonna do it outside, let people get it.
Sorry?
If you're having online, see. No, community with the kids now, ask questions.
As far as the planning, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, so it's one of those things where there are very few committees left in the state that are still doing the same. Lancaster, Whitefield, Littleton. And so, well, it could be, yeah. And so what we've talked about, what we decided was, we felt it wasn't for people still to see. But it is very distracting in the discussion to be going back.
Guys, see, no, it's really.
Right. And so this is the thing, like, so if she's doing that, she's not part of the discussion, and that really doesn't work.
Right.
If we,
Carl is the one actually running the Zoom on his laptop and trying to run the meeting, which makes it really.
that's where we said, look, it's fine.